transistor, the integrated circuit, the night vision, the fiber optics were handed down to aerospace industries and Bell Laboratories, but I just don't think there's enough evidence to tie all the dots together.
What would you need to convince you?
Some of the hardware, some of the actual hardware would be very convincing.
How do you account for the rapid development of fiber optics in the short period that it was claimed to have been developed?
Well, this was allegedly one of the technologies that was found inside the hull of the Roswell craft. However, when we're spending between $1 and $200 billion on classified programs, the government is going to get something for their money. So I never underestimate what the government puts into these programs.
What about the Bob? What's your feel? You've been to Area 51.
Yes.
What are you feeling about Bob Lazar and his testimony?
Jim Goodall was a good friend of Bob Lazar, still is, and he believes that Bob Lazar is a legitimate person and his story is legit. I met Bob Lazar once about 10 years ago for 15 minutes. We didn't get time to talk much, so I just don't know if his story is true. He does raise some very interesting points. Stanton Friedman completely discards him whatsoever, but again, in favor of Bob Lazar, he did know where and when the test flights were to take place. So I went out there and tested his theory, went out there on a Wednesday night, and I was successful in capturing something. So Bob Lazar definitely knows something, and that's the extent of my understanding of Mr. Bob Lazar. Well, according to Bob Dean and his assessment report, some of those people look just like us, so it's possible they're not from around here. But what I will say is, on this particular aircraft, which is the quote-unquote alien reproduction, the general who was giving the lecture on this stated that they could achieve light speed or better with this craft. So if that's true, and we know how possibly space-time works and what Bob Lazar talked about by bringing your destination toward you by creating an artificial gravitational field, we've already been to the stars. This is very consistent with what Ben Rich talked about. And we know that George Bush has no clue and has no need to know about that type program. So definitely, I'm definitely a believer that there is a exo-political group that's controlling this that's outside any congressional oversight whatsoever.
Let's go back and talk about the Area 51 visits. How did that originate? What did you go to the site with? What cameras and equipment were you taking, and what photographic evidence did you procure?
Well, this just happened vintage 1995 when there was a lot of public awareness about Area 51, and this was just prior to Freedom Ridge being grabbed by the Bureau of Land Management at that area in the county there. And you could still get relatively close to Area 51. We were about 19 nautical miles away from the actual base, but on a Wednesday night, I and 3 other people in a small minivan after 10 o'clock were successful in recording at least 3 anomalous craft that did not blow in the direction of the prevailing wind. They held their position, they hovered. Don't know what they were, but we did get them on tape.
Where are the current test facilities, the first line facilities for testing this? Are they in the United States? Are they out of the United States?
Well,
where are they doing where's the United States doing most of their most advanced testing?
Of course, there are bases overseas at RAF Boscombe Down. Obviously, everyone knows about the remote test site in Nevada. The area just south of Area 51 known as S4, where is allegedly where Bob Lazar saw his 9 craft in the hangars. We also have a facility in Utah that's very hot. And then one place that most people constantly forget about is Edwards North Base. Not Edwards Air Force Base, but Edwards North Base. That's a very deep black program procurement area. They have underground facilities there, and very little has ever been written about Edwards North Base.
We also know that there was, in the late 80s, during the Reagan-Bush administration of that period, there was work on a super collider going through the southwest of the United States, underground super collider testing. And you talked about earlier in your lecture here at MUFON in Tucson about underground tunnels and hangars, but specifically tunnels that were quite wide enough to hold 2 large aircraft side by side and still have space on either end. So where are these tunnels going? Are they going short distances to remote facilities? Or are they going long distances traversing states and regions in the United States?
Well, the engineer that I spoke